Hey everybody, Tom Salemi here of Device Talks. Welcome back to the Device Talks Weekly Podcast. A little later in the podcast, I'm going to share an interview I did with Britt Meelby Jensen. She is the CEO of Ambu, which is the world's leading supplier of single-use scopes. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about her career path and many other things. Before we get into that great conversation, I chatted with my colleagues, Sean Whooley, who's associate editor of MassDevice, and of course, the great Chris Newmarker, executive editor of MassDevice. It's earnings week. We didn't focus a lot on numbers or specific reports, but really just trying to capture a tone of earnings, of how companies are being impacted by earnings reports and how investors are responding. So we'll cover all of that in our newsmakers section. But before we begin this podcast episode, I want to remind you that Device Talks West is happening on October 18th and 19th at the Santa Clara Convention Center. Our early bird rate is on. You can attend this great event, 2 days of content, of programming, of insightful instruction, of case studies, of discussions, of panels, of networking, cocktails, friendships to be, all for $395. You can get in on our early bird rate. So make sure you do that. Do not wait. Go to devicetalks.com to register. All right, that's it. Let us get this podcast started. Oh, and one more thing. We're not going to put out a podcast next week because I'll be off. I'm going to be dropping my oldest son off at Purdue, and it's going to be quite the week. Yeah. So no podcast, but we'll be back in 2 weeks. Thanks. All right. You ready for this?
Ready.
Chris Newmarker, how are you, sir?
Good to be here, Tom. Good to be back.
Who's that with you? I see somebody there with you, Chris Newmarker.
It's kind of a bit of a silhouette, but he's got that a little bit of light behind him. But yeah, I think you know what? I think that's Sean Whooley.
Yeah,
here.
we need to get Sean a ring light or something like that.
Yeah.
I know. Poor Sean.
I'm moving in a month, so we'll see how the lighting is in the new place. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If I wasn't in this room, you'd be hearing power saws in the background. So take what you can get.
Are you moving from one basement to another, or are you
No, the third floor, moving
There
on
you
up
go.
literally. So
Nice.
third floor of 3?
yes.
Oh boy.
Fantastic.
I grew up in a triple decker, and third floor people are always a little kooky, I gotta say. So you'll fit right
I'd
in.
imagine basement people are too, so maybe I'm
That's a
fitting in
really good
wherever I
point.
go.
Yeah, we did not have basement people.
To be a good neighbor, you're planning like every morning at 6, you're going to do about like 200 jumping jacks, probably.
Then get my Vitamix going, and
Nice.
yeah,
Great. You usually listen to heavy metal first thing in the morning, right? Like a little
always. Who doesn't?
For those about to
get a little
rock.
Megadeth going.
Exactly. All right, gentlemen. Well, can't wait to see Sean's new natural lighting. That's gonna be something we're all looking forward to. But this week, you both have been diving deep in the earnings calls for MedTech. What quarter are we on? We're on Q2, right? I guess it depends on the company, but yeah.
Most companies Q2, yeah.
But the reports you've had on MassDevice, companies seem to be doing okay, but investors are like, I don't know. Are investors? What's the overall take? Are investors being a little cranky?
Yes.
Maybe, I'm trying to like channel them a bit. I don't know. It's they're definitely seems to be. It kind of reminds me of like being at a restaurant and you seeing that person who's like, complaining, about the particular type of wine they just got, or there's not enough like rosemary sprinkled on the fries or whatever. That seems to be kind of the mood right now. In the when it comes to medtech companies and their earnings reports. Like there's just no forgiveness.
What were some of the companies that you've sort of seen that dynamic happen, Chris? I know you covered Philips.
Yeah, I mean Philips. I mean they for their second quarter they had 9% year over year sales growth. Their net income was much much larger than the same quarter a year ago. But they had some decline in comparable order intake. The Philips CEO Roy Jacobs described it as lumpy, and because of that, as of today, their stock is down more than 3% over the past month.
I'm still unclear on what lumpy means. How does
Lumpy. I mean, that definitely
unsteady? Just like a non-steady flow?
Unsteady might have been better. Yeah, lumpy. I I just think oatmeal. And,
Yeah.
Lumpy oatmeal. I mean, no wonder the stock went down, right? I mean,
you can't put a lot of value in something that's lumpy. Very, very few positive things are that carry the modifier of lumpy.
I don't want lumpy mashed potatoes
or mattresses. Nothing.
No.
There's nothing good about lumpy.
Don't you want to buy this nice lumpy mattress? Like, no.
This new couch is so lumpy. Anyway, all right. So Philips, but what were some? I mean, the 9%, was that meeting Wall Street's expectations? Were they expecting more than that? The growth that was reported. So are these companies meeting expectations, and investors just aren't rewarding that success?
A lot of companies are beating the expectations, but the markets are saying like, no, we want more. I mean, like Zimmer Biomet is another good example. They beat the street.
Yep.
in Q2. They upped their guidance for the year, and and they had Truist analysts saying that they thought the second quarter results were good, but quote unquote might not be enough on elevated utilization expects. So Zimmer Biomet stock right now is down more than 11% over the past month, after that.
And just to be clear, we started having this conversation a few days ago, before Fitch issued its downgrade.
I mean, we're talking on Friday right now, and Fitch just earlier in the week announced a downgrade of the U.S. credit rating, but actually that hasn't had much of effect on the overall markets. I mean, like we're seeing this pickiness over medtech stocks, but as far as like the what seems to be like a hostage situation every time there's a budget negotiation in Washington. I mean, the markets seem to be kind of like, yeah, we know, so we're moving on with that for now.
Sean, what any examples stick out in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, both Hologic and Baxter are two big companies that beat the street, posted seemingly good results, and both saw their stocks declining, and there's a lot of questions. I think a lot of the issue is some of these companies are, looking towards the future and thinking about what's coming next, and the analysts are taking account. Hologic, there's a lot of questions over, can they return to a level of normalcy post COVID-19 sales? They ramped up for diagnostics, and now that's clearly, and I think a lot of companies that had COVID-related products are seeing that, and now analysts are questioning that. Baxter, on the other hand, had a divestiture of its biopharma solutions business, which had some questions over the timeline, so that the analysts weren't happy about that. I haven't seen analysts talking about it yet. It was only last night that it came out, but Tandem's results, they reset their guidance because they're restructuring some plans around the new insulin pump that just got cleared last month, and you would think investors would be thrilled over they're ramping up production, or they're getting commercial ducks in a row for a new insulin pump and a new market. But their stock was trading 15% down after hours when their results came out because they reset their guidance. I don't.
Oh, but hey, we're talking now like Friday morning though, and now they're up. Great. 4%. So maybe the investors woke up the next morning, and had a cup of coffee and were like, this wasn't so bad. I mean,
maybe that plays into the whole they're being very fickle. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, right. I mean, you were last night writing that up, and it was like heading down all that way after hours, and then maybe a soothing earnings call, like just a good night's sleep was what the investors needed to be a little more forgiving, perhaps.
Hopefully an analyst note comes out about that, and I can see maybe there's a little extra in there that caused the turnaround this morning. But yeah, no, it's an interesting, like I said, fickle might be a good word.
Yeah, fickle might be even better than picky or cranky. It's, but yeah.
Maybe it's a Device Talks weekly bump. Let's take credit for it. Yeah. They knew we'd be talking about this.
They knew that I jinxed it in my poor lighting.
It is very bad lighting. So, investors aside, what kind of sense are you getting from the analysts who are on the calls? Questions that are coming from these companies, is there generally a feeling that the companies are doing what they need to do to meet analyst expectations? I know we were talking about the numbers just earlier, but any sense from the tone of the calls? Has anything changed at all? Or has it been pretty much run of the mill from what you've had in past quarters?
Sean, when I've been listening to it, it's been a lot of like, this is great. Congratulations on your consensus beating, whatever, but let's drill down into this, and that seems to be a lot of like, it's almost like, yeah, this is good. Congratulations. Like, what more can you do for us? Like, that seems to be.
It's been a lot of, these results are, surface level, what's going on with the business. They're talking about whatever case may be, whether it's regulatory stuff or commercial launches. They want to drill down into that stuff. They're not really worried about, a couple cents here and there on your EPS, I think.
Yeah.
No.
All right. So overall, things are going in the right direction for the most part. Obviously, some companies are having more difficulties than others. Let's focus on that. And are there any companies that have stumbled this quarter? And the Wall Street is justifiably dinging them for doing so.
Well, definitely like the lumpy order intake. That definitely was a moment for sure. I don't know if I'd call it I'd also like mention like another one we didn't mention was Siemens Healthineers. They were reporting that they were temporary logistics challenges over at Varian. This was about like outbound logistics, order backlogs, so I mean it's kind of like, this is good overall, big order backlog, right? But they're not getting the orders out enough there, and that they got dinged for that. I mean, as we're talking on Friday, like their stock was down over 1% over the past month. And it's worth noting too that just overall, I mean, the S&P 500 is like up 1.5%. So definitely like we're seeing like this performance that's the investors are being pickier. I mean, my best educated guess might just be that medtech, on top of all the kind of challenges the companies in general are kind of trying to work through, like inflation, higher interest rates, supply chain, there's also in medtech just this question about the health provider customers and, when they're going to, kind of work through their operational challenges. So I think that might be playing into this larger pickiness as well. But it definitely seemed a lot of the calls. It's like they're just like, oh yeah, it's running. Car's running well. I mean, the car's doing okay. It's like, all right, let's get this hood up and see what's really going on here. See if we can, what else you guys can do what you all can do there to, make this run even better and kind of like get to the kind of growth that, like MedTech was seeing before the pandemic.
John, let's bring in some good news. I know you had a report with Dexcom. They're more than double their profits on 25% sales growth. The shares seem to respond positively,
yeah,
right?
Definitely. And that's down to some next gen technology. The G7 launch, I think, has played directly into that. Abbott, similarly, their overall business was good. Diabetes specifically, though, Freestyle Libre 3 and Freestyle Libre sales in general. So that type of, those companies definitely performed very well. Dexcom has good news about, future plans too, as far as where it wants to expand CGMs. Obviously, the Medicare decision that kicked in April that expanded the addressable market for CGMs has contributed there. So while I mentioned Tandem, has struggled with its results, although is evidently having a turnaround on the market, other diabetes companies, particularly CGM makers, are performing pretty well, it seems.
The funny thing about Dexcom, Sean, though, is like over the past month now, they're down like nearly 5%. So it's kind of like this head scratcher. I mean, the results, I mean, yeah, when I saw Dexcom results too, they were great. And, like initially, like the markets were doing, responding well. And, now we're kind of just, it's like, oh, they're down, like Edwards Life Sciences, down, over the past month. Even, I mean, Boston Scientific, I wrote that earnings report and that was like, really felt really, really positive, all those results from Boston Scientific, and they're down more than 4% over the past month. I mean, it just feels fickle, but
or lumpy or cranky.
Lumpy. Yeah. Hey, we got some good ones though. There is some bright spots though. We can't just like end this like
hit me. Well, we had a couple of bright spots, and then we had the kind of curious one that I wanted to end with, which was Intuitive, which is a company we've been obviously proclaiming as the undisputed leader in surgical robotics, but they had a little stumble this time around.
Yeah, they had a stumble, which was really interesting.
We want to get into the bright spots first, and then we'll end with we'll keep people's appetite. Do you whet an appetite, or do you whet a thirst? Whet an appetite. You whet an appetite.
WHET, right?
A balm, a soothing.
Yeah.
Provide a balm for people.
So what are a few of the bright spots, and then we'll end with Intuitive.
Yeah, totally. I thought, Integer, that was, they blew past expectations, and I think that's a good sign too, because they're one of the largest, medtech contract manufacturers in the world. So the fact that you're seeing, a contract manufacturer supporting all these companies, like doing, like so well, I think that bodes well for the industry, going forward, and could provide more, evidence that like overall, like, the medical device industry is kind of moving, past, some of those challenges that we saw earlier in the year. And it felt good too to see, Integer CEO, like talking about it, saying that they're seeing an improving supply chain and labor environment as well for them. So I just think that was great. Stock went up a lot on the day they announced this, and they're still up like nearly 4% over the past month with their stocks. So that's just really good.
Another one is iRhythm, which has obviously faced some struggles recently with an FDA warning letter and the U.S. Justice Department investigation. They're currently up 19% this morning. They were up after hours yesterday too. They had more than 20% improvement on sales, and they gave a little update on the FDA stuff, saying analysts said the update was largely positive. The company received clarification on necessary labeling revisions that would allow its Zio AT to continue marketing as a mobile cardiac telemetry monitor. So that's one sort of success story, I would say, from the quarter, especially for a company that was seemingly facing downward for a bit.
Yeah, that would be the company you'd have embattled before or something like that. It would always carry that kind of modifier. Well, Chris, how about let's wrap up with Intuitive. Like I said, we've looked at like J&J and Medtronic and all these other big companies going to come at it with new surgical robotic systems that'll challenge it, but perhaps there's another vulnerability that we hadn't taken into account.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like Intuitive stock's down more than 7% over the past month, and I mean, overall, it was a good earnings report. They topped the consensus forecast. They had the results that they had results that topped the consensus forecast. I mean, they at this point they're still, not sharing financial outlook for the year, but they had a 36.7 bottom line gain, a sales growth of 15.4%. However, they said that the growth rate of robotic assisted bariatric surgeries had slowed in the U.S. in the second quarter, and that was enough to elicit like a negative response.
But that was due to?
That was what was really interesting, is that analysts suggested the decline could be due to these new popular weight loss drugs that are out there that are getting touted. We got hope I'm pronouncing it right, but Wegovy, and then there's Ozempic, which is not approved yet for as a weight loss drug, but because it's so related to Wegovy, there's been off-label prescribing of it for weight loss. But these new drugs perhaps will be transient, but they appear to be, providing a headwind for bariatric surgery procedure volumes, which I that makes sense. If there's a drug people are excited about that could reduce their appetite, so they lose weight that way, that could seem attractive versus undergoing a surgery.
Yeah. Well, I think that would probably be everyone's first choice, is to take a shot or even get an injection. I think some of these are injected, right?
Yeah, those drugs are injected.
It'll be interesting to see how things play out. I mean, good that medical device companies are, for the most part, meeting expectations.
It's worth noting we're talking to. I mean, I've read that the August and the year before a presidential election is always weird. It's and the market's generally kind of like, let's just see what starts happening in the fall. As the campaign wraps up, and I'm sure it's like even weirder this time around. Yeah.
I was going to say it's a weird month, and an possibly weird presidential campaign season. So, all right, good stuff, gentlemen. Thanks for sharing your thoughts.
Good to be here, Tom.
Well, Britt Meelby Jensen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, and thanks for having me join you today.
Oh, my pleasure. We've talked to Ambu a few times and are familiar a bit with the story, at least on the single-use endoscope side. I know you do more, and I know that, but single-use endoscopes is your primary business. So I definitely want to get into the business of Ambu in a few minutes. But as always, we'd love to find out about our guests first. How did you find your way into the medical device industry?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question to start off with. So I'm Danish and based in Denmark, where Ambu is also based. And I've spent over the past 20 years working in healthcare. And it was really after my studies. I have an economics business degree. I went into consulting for a few years with McKinsey, and that's where I advised in multiple industries, including healthcare. And I found the healthcare industry interesting because this is where you are able to make a very visible difference for people. So I then left consulting and went into Novo Nordisk, the large Danish pharmaceutical company, where I spent over 11 years in different global commercial leadership roles. Really had a great time there, and then moved into other areas in healthcare, into cancer diagnostics, later back to the drug side in a biotech company, and then I moved some years back into medtech.
Are there primary differences between what you were doing in pharma, what you're doing in medtech, or do you feel like it's similar businesses with similar missions?
I think the missions are not, depending on what space you're in, but I think the mission is not too difficult or too different, and I also think, the whole purpose of what you do and what gets you up every day, and the rewarding part of really being close to the people that you help. I think that goes across all the different areas of healthcare. I will say that in pharma, of course, it's very different dynamics in terms of the timelines are much longer for developing new medicines than when you move into medtech. And I think that was something I found very interesting when I moved into medtech to the company Atos Medical, where I was before I joined Ambu, was that, you have a little more flexibility to do things from the fact that the environment is less regulated. And then still, you're able to innovate and bring products faster to market compared to pharma. So I think that more dynamic mindset, or way of working, is interesting.
That's interesting indeed. Looking at your background, you've been CEO of this is your fourth CEO job, is that correct?
Yeah, it's the fourth CEO role, and you can say the third if you calculate fully independent companies. I left Novo Nordisk just over 10 years ago and moved into cancer diagnostics to lead a Danish-based company, Darko, that had just been acquired by Agilent. So I was working as part of Agilent, and then I was there for some time and was then offered to lead a public biotech company, Zealand Pharma, which was then my first, you can say, real CEO role in an independent company.
Was being CEO something you had planned on or worked toward? I imagine it's always in the back of your mind, being an executive at a company. But was it something that you had built into your plan?
I think I've not really had a very clear career plan, I have to say. I think I've been driven a lot throughout my career by the opportunities that there has been. And then my focus has really been to make a difference in the jobs that I've had. And that has then led to different roles. But I have to say, I think when I was asked about this position to be the CEO of a fully independent company, I thought that was very intriguing in many ways, because I think I could use my learnings from many years in the healthcare industry and many years as a leader in a bigger organization to really, set the agenda and also the way of working, and really create a company where it's about, of course, the results you create for your customers. It's about financial results, but it's also very much about the culture you have in the company and how you work. And I think I'm very interested in leadership, and also have quite strong views about how I think companies should be led and what I find effective. So being able to lead that, I think, was a great honor and very rewarding.
Do you have, for every company you've been CEO at, do you have sort of a set of guidelines, a credo, or something that you think applies equally to each company, or is each company like a different person and you need to interact with them differently?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think, as a person, I'm very true to my own values. And I think I'm a very curious person. So I think in every job I'm in, I'm very curious to learn and to develop. And I think the things that you learn in one company, you bring with you, but then you move to a new company, which is a new situation and also a new business channel or a different business challenge. And I think I leverage what I've learned from my past career and then bring that into a new situation. And then I'm very focused also that it's not only about me, but it's about the whole organization, starting with the executive leadership team. So I'm very focused on building a strong leadership team that collaborates well and engages well. And that's really where I don't think I have the answers to everything myself, but I think it's also about having a leadership team where you then build, on the values and the heritage of the company, but also set, a joint set of values and way of working. So I would say I think that's what I do, but very much looking at the situation that the company is in and the task that you are in to solve.
Well, let's talk about your current opportunity. You were on the board of directors at Ambu prior to taking the role of CEO. Why did you take the CEO role? What were the opportunities you saw? And give me a sense of where the company was when you took over.
Yeah, so I was on the board of Ambu for around 2.5 years before being the CEO, and at the same time I was leading a Swedish-based private equity-owned medtech company, Atos Medical, and we sold that company to Coloplast, successful Danish medtech company. And then I was ready to take another role or actually first to take a break to really understand what I wanted to do as a next step in my career, as I had been moving very much from one opportunity to the next. Then being on the board of Ambu, we were at that time when I was on the board through a very exciting journey where we increased our investments a lot into the field of single-use endoscopy. And also, we're facing a situation where we underestimated some of the time it took for our customers to adopt a new way of working. So this was really where we were in a situation where we saw challenges with declining profitability, and we were not able to meet our revenue targets that we had put out to the street. So it was around that time the chairman asked if I wanted to join the company, and I was really and continue to be very excited about the potential we have as a company, having really proven that we are able to move into a new area and change the paradigm, working closely with our customers. So I thought that was an interesting opportunity, and that we had only just gotten started, so there was a lot more potential. And then I could also see that some of my experience fitted very well into some of the challenges that we had also, both in terms of getting the financial situation back on track, as well as also getting investor credibility back, which had, of course, suffered as we were not delivering on our own promises. So I think this was some of the things that attracted me. But first and foremost, I think when you're in this industry, I think most people are very focused on the difference you make for the customers and also the ability you are able to continue to do that better. So I think that was what I was really intrigued by, and our product portfolio, that we had invested a lot in the recent years and really advanced our portfolio to be very strong.
So let's talk about the company a bit. I know it primarily as a single-use endoscope business, and you're, I think, the largest provider of that in the world, and we can get into that in a moment. But give me, if you would, just an overview of Ambu. Is there much more to the story than that? What am I missing, if anything?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So we are actually a company that were founded in 1937 here in Denmark, where we still have our headquarters. So we are a company with a strong legacy and really rooted in developing innovative solutions together with our customers that have been groundbreaking. The first areas we were in were anesthesia, where one of the first inventions we had was the Ambu bag that is still widely used in hospitals around the world. So that was at that time the world's first self-inflating ventilation bag, and really an important step at the time. And this is many decades ago in emergency medical equipment.
That's the iconic mask over your mouth, squeezing the bag to get air in and out. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so that, I mean, it has been changed a bit, but this was launched some 60 years ago. So that's actually fascinating how we are still very well known for that today. Then we were the first to develop a single-use endoscope that we launched a bronchoscope back in 2009. And that was really where that whole growth journey started on the single-use endoscopy. Today, we have just over half of our revenue is in single-use endoscopy, and then the other, also with slower growth, part of the business is the anesthesia and patient monitoring. But since then, I mean, it took a number of years, and it was really only the third generation where we started to see very strong traction with our bronchoscope. And then since then, I mean, today we are leading in single-use endoscopy. And in the past couple of years, we then expanded into new areas. Only in the past 4 or 5 years into ENT, urology, and GI. So segments where we are really building on the strong technology platform and understanding we have of single-use endoscopy, but addressing customers that have very different needs. So that has been an exciting journey that we have been on in really working with customers, for example, in the field of urology, where nobody knew who Ambu was 4 years ago. And today we are very well known and see high growth. So I think the way that we have been really driven by our innovation and new technology, expanding into new therapy areas, has been very interesting. And that's also, you can say, when we look ahead, where our focus is, that we have, compared to many other companies, in a short period of time expanded into a number of new customer segments. With our new zoom-in strategy, it's all about really focus and execution. So right now, making sure that we really focus in on all the segments that we're in to do a good job, and then also focus on how we execute, because we have had a couple of years where things have really moved fast.
I don't know if you said this or not, but you said 2009 was when you came out with the first single-use scope. Were you the first to come out with it, or were there others out as well?
Yeah, we were the first, and we have for many years been alone in the field. So we were the first to come out with a single-use endoscope. This was a bronchoscope where you can say in the past couple of years, we have seen a number of new companies entering the field. And I think that's, only as expected. As you develop a new category and you're successful establishing that does attract the competition. And I'd also say, if we look at the overall endoscopy market, so worldwide, there are around 200 million annual procedures using an endoscope. And if we look at the markets that we are focusing on, it's around 100 million. And of those, it's around 2.5 million, roughly, procedures that are done with a single-use endoscope, either with one of ours, and that's the most part, or one of the other players. And that's, of course, also demonstrating how the potential to expand further is huge.
I know you weren't with the company at the time, but I'm sure you've got the institutional memory of that's a pretty bold step to go single use. I mean, intuitively, it seems like a natural step. Talking with someone recently about when he was a child in the 40s, he talked about reusable needles and syringes, and you hear that now, you're like, I can't believe they reuse those. I don't know if we'll ever get that with scopes, but do you know what were the pain points that led Ambu to develop that concept? Have those pain points, have they gotten better? Have they gotten worse? What does it look like going forward? But let's go back to the beginning. Do you have a sense of what led to that innovation?
Yeah, so I mean, we were leading and very close to customers in anesthesia and in the ICU department. So that was really where that came from our other portfolio, and that we then, I mean, the customers were looking for a solution that they would have ready at hand when a patient came in. So that was really how it started. And then you can say, then our products have become much more advanced and sophisticated ever since then. There has been a number of things driving this, and I think it is a little bit different today, and also it's even slightly different when you look at the different segments that we are in. But this is, I mean, a lot about there's something around the focus on infections through the scope that has driven the conversion to single use in some segments. But otherwise, what we see today in the hospitals is very much, I mean, the fact that with reusable scopes, you need to wait for a scope. You cannot be sure that there's a scope available when you need it, because it can either be in use or being reprocessed or repaired. And then there is also, I mean, clear evidence that there's, I mean, that leads then to rescheduling or canceling of appointments, which is not, you can say, ideal when you have a patient in a sometimes life-threatening situation where a scope is required but not available. So it's really where you can say our focus is to make sure that we can then change that paradigm for customers by not having to wait to clean and so on. And then so they have an opportunity to treat more patients. And then also today, where, I mean, many hospitals are challenged by not having sufficient staff. I mean, you don't need to have people on call to clean the scope. So that's something that we see create a better workflow and flexibility. And then there's the whole economics around that for some departments, seeing that, I mean, you don't have to invest in a lot of capital equipment. It's a much simpler setup.
Do you have, I suppose the other aspect is also the sterilization process, the concerns over the environmental ramifications of sterilization that we're becoming more and more aware of. Is that playing into things as well? Because, I mean, it just, on one hand, you could see the reusable thing creating a new waste stream that wasn't there previously. On the other hand, if you're offsetting that, the impact of that by not using chemicals that have been found to be, well, dangerous. I don't know if it offsets that or if there's one clear benefit or another. Does the environmental aspect play into your strategy as well?
Yeah, it does play into our strategy a lot, and it's one of the key parameters in our strategy is sustainability, and I mean, also being a Scandinavian company, we have a strong focus here, and I'd say, I mean, we have invested a lot in sustainability over the past couple of years, and we do have in multiple of the sustainability indices, we rank quite high and higher than, for example, we have an AA rating in the MSCI, which is one of the key ratings. So this we are happy with, but we are really also very focused on the fact that we are a single-use company, that we continue to do a better job with the material that we use, the packaging, how we transport our products, and then more and more of our customers are being focused on this and doing studies where they also show that this is actually, in some cases, either it's the same or even better than using a reusable for some of the reasons that you just mentioned around the whole use of chemicals for the reprocessing. And also, if you then also count in some of the logistics and transport around repairs and so on. So there's definitely, for us, a strong focus on sustainability and that we continue to be very focused on, so we can still provide single-use products in a way that is more sustainable.
Mm-hmm. How is it being the market leader in this space? What are the benefits of that? And you're getting competition, of course, from larger companies, but some smaller startups as well of developing their own technology. How are you differentiating yourselves, or how do your sales teams differentiate your products from others? Is it price? Is it functionality? I imagine it's a combination of both, but what's the strategy there?
Yeah, so I mean, we were the first in the single-use endoscopy field, and are still the world leaders in single-use endoscopy. So that's, of course, I mean, that has been an exciting journey, and also because we have been out creating a market and opening our customers' eyes to the great benefits in the new ways of working that comes with that, and having new routines and better routines in the hospitals. So I think this whole pioneering role that has been interesting and also has been a way to work very close with the customers. Although you can say in some areas, things have not moved as fast as we have looked to. So we have in many ways paved the way, I would say, for a paradigm shift. And that, of course, as we talked about before, that leads then to competition. And I think in many ways, we do have great companies out there that are also coming out with new great products. And then you can say the benefit we have from being in this field for a long time is, of course, we have been able to create scale in the way that we operate, but we have also been able to really get close to our customers, really understanding their needs and understanding how you sell single-use endoscopes and build relationships in different areas. But of course, also you can say a challenge is, of course, that building relationships takes time, and that's, as we have moved into a number of new segments, that is still something that is a strong focus for us in some of the new segments. But I think it is for a company like Ambu that is with our size, I think it's good for us to have more companies with single-use endoscopes that can help bring attention to the benefits for our customers there. So I would say overall, I think it's great to see that other companies are seeing the potential here.
And final question, where do you see growth for the future for Ambu? Is it doubling down on single-use endoscopes, expanding the portfolio of this, or is it moving into adjacent or even non-adjacent markets? How does the future look? I know you're a publicly traded company, so you're not going to give me all the state secrets, but broadly, the broad guidelines, what are you looking at?
Yeah, but I would say our focus is very much, and has, since we were founded, been to be close to the customers and understanding their real needs. And that is what we will continue to do and have that focus as we innovate. Then I'd say, as we talked about, in the past couple of years, we have invested a lot in innovation. So if we look at the future, we still have a very exciting portfolio and continue to be able to invest, having a more focused approach and really making sure that we can be out there with our customers in the segments that we're in now, and then gradually expand our portfolio to fulfill their needs. That's very much our focus. We are investing significantly more in the endoscopy field compared to anesthesia and patient monitoring, which are really areas where, in general, we have a lot of colleagues who focus there, and we continue to also improve our offering there. But there's more innovation happening in the endoscopy field, and that's also where our main focus is when it comes to investing in new innovation.
If I were given the opportunity to walk through your R&D labs and see what's coming up in 5 or 10 years, is it mind-blowing, or are you merely like improving the imaging and it's just going to be more just kind of better of what you currently do? Or do you anticipate someday being able to do things that you cannot currently do with a single-use endoscope?
I think based on the offering we have and the difference we make for our customers, we continue to challenge ourselves, understanding the customer's need and come out with new and greater things. And that's what I also think we should. And also, as technology is developing rapidly, that's has of course been, if we look at where we are now compared to when we started in the single-use endoscopy, it's clear that some of the new technologies are bringing opportunities that we are also looking into and focusing on. So I think we have a great opportunities and a strong platform to build on, and that we should be able to fulfill customer needs and help our customers for many years to come.
Fantastic. Well, Britt Meelby Jensen, it was a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
And thanks for the opportunity.
All right, well, that is a wrap. Chris Newmarker, you're out there in social media land. Where can folks find you?
Hey, just find me on LinkedIn, Chris Newmarker, like a new marker.
Sean Whooley, where are you? And take a moment, please, to plug your fabulous Fast Five podcast.
Happy to. First, you can find me on LinkedIn, Sean, Sean, Whooley, Whooley. And yeah, please tune into the Fast Five, 4 episodes a week. They release Tuesday through Friday every morning. And myself and senior editor Danielle Kirsch discuss the news of the day, basically. We pick 5 stories, break down a few of the important details from them, what you can take away from them. And they range from the earnings stories to regulatory to everything in between. So plenty to break down. It's a nice little quick jolt for your commute, learning about the news of the day.
Yeah.
And it encourages you to learn more on MassDevice if you so choose.
And you guys don't horse around like we do here. You are professionals. You are like in and out. You don't waste anybody's time. How is putting that together kind of helped you as a reporter? I have to imagine, like, just to put the hour or two into formulating your thoughts, reporting your stories, having things to talk about. Is it kind of solidifying your analysis, your takes on the medical device industry?
It's definitely allowing me to form more of an understanding about why things happened and how they sort of play out. And it's also, sometimes you get so lost in trying to just achieve or accomplish what you need to accomplish for the day that, I might miss one of Chris's earnings stories or something like that. And so if having to actually go back and read our website, it's becoming quite informative when I, occasionally miss some things, and I'm not ashamed to admit that I do miss some things. So learning more for sure.
There's a lot of news up there for sure. All right. Well, I'm on LinkedIn, Tom Salemi. Please connect with me. Please, what do you want folks to do with this podcast and with Fast Five, Chris?
You got to like, follow, subscribe.
That's right. You got to like, follow, and just subscribe to the Device Talks Podcast Network to get Device Talks Weekly, Intuitive Talks, Boston Scientific Talks, Abbott Talks, Stryker Talks. And you have to subscribe separately to get Fast Five. But we're both on on every podcast application. And so you can get many different types of great medtech analysis through podcasts. So do that, please. Share this episode on social media. Connect with Sean, Chris, and myself so we can be part of that conversation. And please follow, or subscribe our LinkedIn groups, MassDevices page, Device Talks page. We've got lots of great content up there. Sends it right to your feed, so we don't miss a story. Because as Sean indicated,
smorgasbord of content, and I just say, like, if you're really busy, I mean, Sean and Danielle, they are doing just like this fantastic job, just just getting in there and out, and just like bang bang bang. Here's the top news that's been on MassDevice over the past 24 hours. So I mean, you can just like play that on the drive to the office, or run it on the treadmill at on the gym, or the Peloton at home, whatnot. Just the way to go. Or
play it on a loop and just listen to it the entire time you're sleeping. It'll just get absorbed into your brain, and you'll just be a medtech automaton.
The smooth jazz rhythms of that opener that Danielle picked for the
that is a damn catchy tune. I've had that in my head more than once. I'm like, damn that podcast. I can't
humming it while I'm
I've got a pep in my step because of that damn podcast.
That's all we aspire to do.
You're doing a great job.
That's right.
And finally, of course, Device Talks West is happening October 18th and 19th at the Santa Clara Convention Center. We'll be talking to a lot of these companies. We'll be talking with Dave Rosa, new president of Intuitive, and we'll certainly ask about the pressures coming from the bariatric surgery drugs, or the weight loss drugs, the impact that's having on bariatric surgery. But we'll have Abbott there. Many of the companies we've talked to today will have there as well, talking about different things, but important things. So go to devicetalks.com to find our podcasts and to make sure you register for the Device Talks West event. Again, October 18th and 19th in Santa Clara, and you need to register within the next couple of weeks to take advantage of our ridiculously generous early bird rate. You can attend this fantastic 2-day conference for less than $400 for $395. I know, right?
Wow.
It's unheard of. This is like 1998 prices.
It's a steal.
It's insane. We are insane. Crazy Tom Salemi giving you medical device content for low prices.
Insane in the membrane.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Device Talks Weekly Podcast. Thanks, guys.
Hey, enjoy the summer, everybody. Minnesota State Fair, just a few weeks away. Woo!